In Bangladesh in the year 1971, due to a lot of floods, and most of the people lost their houses and fields, and that is when many people from Bangladesh came to Simapuri. On the way to the house, what do we see? We see stinking lanes. The path or the way to the house is stinking. Why? Because it is choked, it is filled with garbage. Word of hope from this lesson is Mukesh doesn't want to be a bangle maker. He knows bangle making and he's good at it, but he doesn't want to be a bangle maker. He wants to be a motor mechanic and he wants to learn to drive cars. Hello and welcome to your prep school English classes. I am your English teacher Kshama. In this session today, we are going to learn the second chapter from your Flamingo textbook named as The Lost Spring, written by Anis Jung. Let's waste no time right now and let's dive into the lesson, okay? In this session, we are going to learn about the author, the background of the story, where is the story set in, the summary of the lesson, as well as have a quick recap over the details and the events of this lesson, okay? Moving forward, I have a couple of questions as always to you. What is the first question? Now, how much of what you are in childhood or whatever the experiences you have had in childhood do you think contributes to the person that you are when you grow up? What would have happened if you would have gotten a childhood which is very different from the one that you have been through? What if your childhood was completely different from the one you actually got? Next up, what is the third question? How do you think it would make you feel to lose all the childhood memories? What if all your childhood memories are washed away? What would happen to you? That will be like an irreplaceable loss, it would be, right? Then, as budding adults, are there some of the traditions that you have come across, some which you totally agree with because they make sense, and some that totally don't make sense, that are completely bizarre? And as a child, you always wanted to make a difference in the world, and you wanted to make something big, you wanted to change the world. What has happened to that, wish of yours? Is it still going? The fire is still on, or what has happened to it? You let me know. So the author for today, this lesson is inked by our author Anis Jung. Her name is Anis Jung, and she is a writer, journalist, a columnist. She also wrote columns. Her education, most of her education was done in Hyderabad and USA. Her parents were also writers. Then she's known for her famous work Unveiling India, which was in 1987. And what she depicted in her work was the condition of Muslim women behind the parda. And the other works include Night of the New Moon, Encounters with Muslim Women in India, 1993. Then Seven Sisters, Breaking the Silence, and Women's Lives from Around the World. So totally it is evident that she wrote about women's condition, what was happening to women, particularly in India, since her education was also in Hyderabad, of course, and also in USA. She had a mix of writing between what is happening in India as well as how it should have been, the realistic situation of what was happening to women in India, be it Muslim women in particular behind the parda, and Seven Sisters, Breaking the Silence, and Women's Lives around the world. So it is evident that she talks about women's lives. So here also is she talking about women's lives? What does lost spring mean? How is the season of spring, you tell me? The season of spring is the symbol of joy and colors and everything, right? Here, the poet is actually talking about lost childhood. Childhood, is it the loss of memory of childhood? No. There are a greater number of kids even today who are, deprived of their rights to get educated, get the opportunity, like the basic rights or opportunities that you have for that matter. They will not have such rights. Here, I'm not trying to make you guilty or trying to make you responsible for the loss. But it is mere realization and acceptance of the fact that there are so many kids out there who don't have, sufficient education, food, basic facilities such as food, shelter, clothing, all of that. Now, as responsible citizens, as responsible human beings on the humanity grounds, what is it that we ought to do? How are we responsible and what are we supposed to do? In order to understand all this, let's just dive deep into the lesson and find out that there are two stories embedded into this single story, okay? The first story is, sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. As interesting as it may sound, it is beautiful. It is a beautiful story, of course. The second one is, I want to drive a car. Okay, let's see who is finding a rupee in the garbage. Before going to the story, we have to understand about the setup. Where is the first story happening? The first story is happening in a city called Simapuri. Now, Simapuri is the borders of Delhi. Although it is a part of Delhi, it kind of feels like it is nowhere related to Delhi. Delhi, you know, is a huge city. But it feels like metaphorically, Simapuri is way, out of reach from Delhi. Then that is one thing. And in Bangladesh in the year 1971, due to a lot of floods, and most of the people lost their houses and fields. And that is when many people from Bangladesh came to Simapuri. Though many people who live in Simapuri are mostly immigrants who have come from Bangladesh. That is the context I want you to understand here. Now, most of Simapuri was earlier filled with forest. It was wilderness. Even today it is wilderness. But there are a couple of mud structures which can be vaguely called as houses. These houses are made with muds, and they have tin sheds over there. Tin roofs are there, and also tarpaulins are used to cover these houses. It is still wilderness, but house-like mud structures have been built over there, and thousands of people along with animals coexist. Seem like they're still in the primitive stage. Okay, that's how they are coexisting with each other. There's still no sewage system, drainage system, or running water facility for the so many people who live over there. But all of them get ration card facility. Why do they get the ration card facility? Because if they get the ration card, their names will be in the voter list. Whoever wants the votes has given them the ration card so that they can all get their voter IDs and vote. But although they have lived in Simapuri back in 1971, they have lived here for some 30-40 years. But even then, they have no identity, no place that they can call. It belongs to us. They cannot say that. They have no identity. But what is greater than identity for people sometimes? Food is greater than identity. More than 10,000 rag pickers live here. They have lived here for how many years? They have lived here for more than 30 years. Okay. What have they opted for? They have opted for rag picking, which is picking up the waste. They have the ration card. I have told you about it. What is more greater than identity? It is food. When they have gotten food, since they have ration card, they'll get all the basic food grains, right? Food is greater than identity. They have left their own native place, which is Bangladesh. They had houses, they had fields, everything over there. Why did they leave it? All the flood that used to wash away their fields and houses left them with no grains and no food. Here at least they get food. That is how brutal their condition is over here. So for the sake of survival, they have chosen what? They have chosen rag picking. For the elders, it is a matter of survival. But for children, it has some other meaning. As much as you dig into the garbage, no? If this person finds 10 rupees, there is hope for finding more. So it seems like for the elders, it has a different meaning, and for the children, it has different meanings. Of course, children are filled with, innocence and that softness. They don't realize. But over here, they have become partners with their elders in rag picking. This is the condition background of people in Simapuri. Now, why are we talking about? Is because our story is set in Simapuri. Moving forward, first story. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Who is finding a rupee in the garbage? Now, our author over here, Anis Jung, meets a boy every single day. What is his name? His name is Sahib-e-Alam, which means Lord of the Universe. This boy is named as Sahib-e-Alam, the Lord of the Universe. Now, what is this boy seen doing every single day? Whenever the author meets him, he is seen picking the rags. He is, coming out of the rags, garbage. She always asks him, what are you doing? Why can't you just leave it? She asks him, and then what does he reply? He says, I don't have anything else to do. His family also fled from Bangladesh. They used to live in the capital city, Dhaka. They have come from Dhaka and have lived in this city, finding or hoping to find gold in the garbage, as he says it. So his name is Sahib-e-Alam, the Lord of the Universe. He doesn't realize that it is the meaning of his name. He just roams around in all the lanes looking for garbage with his friends barefooted. Okay. She asks him, why do you do this? Why? Why can you not let go of this garbage? To which he says, I have nothing else to do. What else do I do? You tell me. To which she says, as hollow as it may sound, she says, go to school. Okay. To which he says, there's no school in the area that I live. What do I do? He has another question. And then she says, if I start a school, will you come? She actually half jokingly, she says, if I start a school, will you come? He says, of course, definitely I will come. Then again, he comes back to her after a couple of days and she had made a promise, is it not? So he asks her, is your school ready? Can I come? To which she says, it takes longer to build a school. Isn't it a false promise that she did to him? I mean, she's not going to keep up to that promise. She was joking with him. But to him, it means so much. He actually came back to her and asked her, is your school ready? Can I come? But she had to actually lie to him. It takes long period of time to build the school. I mean, to her, it might have been just a joke. But to him, it meant so much. It was a matter of such importance that he decided to come back to her and ask her. How sad is that now? And again, when she looks at these kids, she was able to recognize a bunch of them when they roamed around with that large bag of rags that they were carrying. She could recognize a couple of them since it has been so many days that she was encountering with them. And then they are just like these birds out of the nest. They are roaming around everywhere picking rags. So she observes that a couple of them, most of them are not wearing any slippers or chappals. Then she asks, why aren't you wearing any chappals? Where are your chappals? Then, my mother did not bring them down. My mother did not bring them down, one of them says. And the other one says, even if his mother brings it down, he will not wear it. And the other one actually says, I actually want shoes. Now, there are so many things happening over here. There's one boy, when she asks, he says, my mother is not getting the slippers down the shelf. And the other person says, even if she does, you won't wear it. It is like a custom not to wear chappals. Okay, it has become a custom. We don't know if it is truly the custom or the symbol of poverty that is being depicted over here, right? And another one actually says, I want shoes. The other one doesn't even have shoes. Moving forward, then she remembers a story that a man from ODP had told her. What is the story? He had told her that long ago there was a temple, okay? And in the temple there used to be a priest. The priest's son went to school. But every day, constantly, he made a prayer. What was the prayer? He prayed the goddess that I want a pair of shoes. And if I get it, I would never want to lose them. That is how badly he wanted a pair of shoes. Years later, she actually visited this place. Going to school past an old temple, he used to pray every day. His father was a priest. Then he prayed for a pair of shoes. Till here, we have studied. Then 30 years later, she actually visited the same place. When she went to the temple, behind the temple, the new priest's house was there. And what happened there? The old backyard had new priest. Now, there was a boy. There was again a boy of belonging to the same age group. He came and he's wearing a grey uniform. He has a pair of shoes and he throws his bag carelessly on the bed. Now, when she looks at that scene, 30 years ago when that boy used to pray for a pair of shoes. Now, this boy actually has a pair of shoes and has not lost it, which means his prayers have come true, right? But for the rag pickers, if you see on the contrary, there's no one to pray. Forget about praying and getting something. There's nobody to pray for them, or they don't know how to pray for themselves. They don't believe in praying right now. They just believe that lack of slippers is just the tradition. It's okay. They have reasons. My mother is not getting them down. And some of them do want shoes. That is the story that we know. There are rag pickers that are still shoeless. And which means there are so many kids, so many people out there who don't even have the basic opportunity or the basic resources that are required. Right? Moving forward, Sahib is no longer his own master. What has happened now? Over here, in the garbage, when he is finding all the rags and filling it in his bag, he says that sometimes I find a rupee and a 10 rupee or a coin in the garbage. So I feel like I should look for more. That is how the child Sahib feels over here. And then one fine day, the author actually finds him outside of the tennis court with a lot of concentration. He's looking at the game. And then he reveals a secret to the author. He says, sometimes when there is no one around, the watchman actually lets me inside and he actually, allows me to use the swing and play. I feel good about it. And then there is also the similar tennis shoe that he is wearing. In an explanatory manner, he tells her that these were given by someone. Meaning to say he didn't want it to be branded as, having stolen them from somebody. He actually tells her this was given to me. And then she notices how there is a hole in the shoe. For the child who wants to have a pair of shoe, it doesn't matter even if it has a hole in it. What matters is having a shoe. Having a shoe is like a dream come true. But to go one step forward and think of the fact that can he also reach to play the game that they are playing? That feels very out of reach, right? There are so many things that these kids are not yet able to reach out to. There are a lot of resources that they are not exposed to. Similarly, what happens next is that many years later, the author she comes across Sahib again. But something has changed. Sahib is of course grown up. That is one change that has happened. But what else has happened? Sahib is carrying a large milk canister or a milk can, and which is heavy, of course. But then he reveals how he has gotten a job in a tea stall, which pays him 800 rupees. How much? It pays him 800 rupees. And including all his meals, all the expenses of his meals is also paid. But the carefreeness that was there on his face when he wandered around the lanes, the gullies with his bags and his friends, without barefoot, without chappals, that carefreeness is not there on his face anymore. The bag that he used to hold in his hand, it was his. But the milk canister belongs to the owner of the tea house, right? He is no longer his own master. He works under somebody. Although his, the food expenses are taken care of, 800 rupees he is being paid, he is not his own master anymore. He cannot just go around doing whatever that he wants to do according to his own will. Is it not? So that's what we saw here. Hoping to find a rupee in the garbage. That is what he was looking for. Then he is found watching the tennis game. After that, he likes the game actually. The gatekeeper, when no one is around, he lets him use the swing. This is revealed to the author. He's wearing the tennis shoes, and he gives an unasked explanation just in case it is required. Then it is a shoe with a hole, still a dream come true. But the game is out of the reach. That's what we learnt. The current morning, Sahib is found with the loss of carefreeness on his face. But with what has he gotten? He has gotten a job that pays him 800 rupees, right? Pays all his meals. That is where we end our first story, which is sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Finding a rupee in the garbage sometimes, some chance factor is not enough for life, is it not? It is to be able to get 800 rupees or all of your meals paid is what matters. And for that, he has lost the carefreeness on his face, and he works under somebody. He is a servant for somebody else. That's where we end our first story. Moving to the second story, I want a car. Now, before going to that, as I gave you the Simapuri context before the first story, here we have to get the context of Firozabad. Now, where is Firozabad? Firozabad is famous. India's largest glass blowing industry is Firozabad, and there many of the families are found to be indulging in the art of bangle making. Okay, most of the families are involved in bangle making. Now, Firozabad is a very dusty town, okay? And it is the center for glass blowing industry. Mukesh is the center of this story. The first story was about Sahib. The second story is about Mukesh and his family. Now, Mukesh and his family are also involved in making bangles. Over here in Firozabad, these glass making industries and bangle making industries, many of them have employed more than 10,000 children in all these factories to work in these factories. Now, the condition of these factories is as such. It is, it is a very small place, stingy place with no air, no light, high temperature. And most often these kids are seen to be, losing their eyesight, losing the shine of their eyes or the capacity to see eventually by working in the absence of natural light, high temperature, no air. But even then, they involve themselves in doing this bangle making business. Why? What pushes them to do it and nothing else? What is it that stops them from doing something else? None of them who are involved in this process or who work here, they do not know the fact that it is illegal to make these children work in these industries, right? If only they knew, more than 10 to 20,000 children would have been free, right? These 20,000 children, they are inside the hot furnace with no air, no light. We got to know that. But Mukesh over here is our ray of sunlight out of this, mundane, monotonous way of life. He is a ray of hope when he says, I will be a motor mechanic. To which our author asks, do you know how to drive cars? He says with a lot of enthusiasm, I will learn it. I will learn to drive a car. Let's get to know about Mukesh's story, okay? Moving forward, we are now heading to Mukesh's house. On the way to Mukesh's pride. What is Mukesh's pride? His pride is the house that is being rebuilt. But on the way to the house, what do we see? We see stinking lanes. The path or the way to the house is stinking. Why? Because it is choked. It is filled with garbage. It is a dump of garbage. And the walls of the house are all crumbling with wobbly doors, with no windows, right? No windows, wobbly doors. And how is the crowd coexisting with the animals over there? There's so much population, hardly any space to keep your foot, and there is stinking lanes, no sewage, no dryness, just like how we saw in case of Simapuri. Similarly, there is no organization at all. Forget about the word organized, right? This is not how humans are supposed to live. When I say that, I say it on a personal note. This is definitely not on the humanity grounds. To think of something like this where people live, it is absurd. It is very brutal, right? So these are the description of, on the way to his home, we see this picture. This is how it is described. We see that he bangs on the door, a wobbly door, and goes inside, takes the author inside, and there the author sees that there is a firewood place where all the vegetables are cut and kept on the platter. And then she sees the Bahu, wife of Mukesh's elder brother. She meets her, and the Bahu takes care of Mukesh's elder brother and his father, of course. These three men, they are taken care by the Bahu. There's also grandmother, who is the wife of the grandfather. Now, grandfather over the years has learnt nothing but the art of bangle making. And he has passed on the same to his son, and then, of course, to Mukesh as well. In the yellow light, all these kids sit with their parents and the rest of the members of the family, and they start making the bangles. But there is another tiny story embedded inside this story, which is the story of Savita. Now, what is Savita's inescapable fate? What is it? She is also seen wearing pink dress. She's sitting alongside an old woman, okay? And she is also making the bangles. Now, bangles, she's making it so mechanically without knowing what these bangles actually mean. Why do people wear bangles? Bangles represent Suhag, which is the auspiciousness of marriage, which depicts the importance or the purity of marriage, right? Over the years, like when the years are past, Savita will also be married. She will also, the red veil will be put on her, and her hands will be covered with mehendi as well. She will be sent to somebody else's house. It is an inescapable fate. Nobody will really care to ask her if she really wants to get married. It is just the matter of survival. More than a matter of choice, it is a matter of survival. She has to be sent to somebody else's home because they would take care of her hereafter, right? So, are they really bangles or handcuffs in that context? She doesn't understand the sanctity and suhag of the bangles. She's in that age. And we also meet the grandmother who says, "Ek waqt ser bhar khana bhi nahi khaya," which means I have not eaten one whole meal ever since I've gotten married or ever since I was young. That is how much poverty is brutally picking on them and is eating all of them. And that is why it is inescapable fate of Savita to eventually, this little girl who's wearing pink dress and making bangles mechanically would be wearing them one day. It will be on her hands one day without a choice. Then inside the bangle maker's home, what do we see? We saw the firewood place. What is happening? There is firewood stove with a lot of spinach leaves that are boiling inside. Then there are aluminium platters on which the vegetables are cut and kept. Also, we met Bahu, who is Mukesh's elder brother's wife. Then she veils her face. She covers her face as her father-in-law approaches, which is as the custom demands. Although she takes care of them, she has to veil her face when she goes to them or when she interacts with them. Then Mukesh's father, he had been a tailor for a very long period of time, but he could not continue to be one. Then he took to bangle making, which was what his family did for a very long period of time. And he has passed the art of bangle making to his son and further on. Then Mukesh's grandmother says that it is karam. You cannot escape the lineage given by God, she says. Mukesh's grandfather, his biggest achievement is that he has been able to build the hut or the shack that looks like a house, that can be called as a house, that has been built by the grandfather. Clear? Moving forward, then the author actually asks them, why do you not, have your own cooperative? Why do you not all of you come together and start your own cooperative or start your own organization? But to which they reply that whenever something bad happens or whenever there is a crime taking place in the city, the police come here straight away and we are the first ones to get picked up for whatever, crime that has happened, be it robbery, be it murder. We are the first ones to get picked up by the police. Nobody believes in us. Nobody gives us an opportunity. It is true that every individual is born with dreams, but if there are rows of beatings that are put on the dreams, or if there are rows of scenarios where the dreams are killed stage wise, then there is a sort of numbness that takes over an individual and the individual would stop dreaming. Imagine if one day you're not allowed to go somewhere, second day you're not allowed to go somewhere, third day you're also not allowed to go somewhere. Eventually you would stop asking or stop wanting to go there. You will even forget about the fact that I actually wanted to go there some time ago, right? That's how much numbness takes over us. We forget that we sometimes had a wish like that. Similar thing has happened with these people. They don't have protection and they don't have guidance. That's the first thing. There's no one to protect them. There's no one to guide them. And what else is the matter? There is poverty that they are suffering through. Poverty would lead to what? Apathy. Over the period of time, since there is no money, when no money also means no opportunity. And when your dreams are getting killed, when your dreams are getting shattered, it leads to apathy. The state where you're not feeling anything. You're okay. You have come to accept your position, right? Whatever situation is, you're accepting it. Later on, it would also lead to greed. When you can't earn something, you would try to get it or gain it by force, right? And greed would lead to injustice. That is how the cycle would start. First up, there will be poverty. There is hunger. Imagine you're not getting food. Over the period of time, you're like, okay, if this is my situation, I'll accept it. But you see others eating a handful with variety of things. So you want to get it from them. How do you get it? You get it through ways of injustice. When you can't get it in a just way, you employ the ways that are not okay, ways that are immoral, right? That is the cycle that would be poverty would give rise to. That's what the author says. Now, how there is literally a contrast of two worlds that the author presents. The first is the world of the poor that we saw, Simapuri, Firozabad, the bangle makers and Mukesh's family. And then in Simapuri, we saw Saib-e-Alam and his friends, of course. But on the other hand, who has imposed this situation on them? This monochrome of world that has, spread over them, that is because of the colorful world that the other section of the society is living. Who are they? These are sahukars, these are police, these are basically the law keepers. Whoever the law keepers are, or the ones who pretend to be the law keepers, they are the ones in the name of the caste system, in the name of, being rich and poor. They have put a lot of baggage on the heads of the individuals or the children of the poor community or poor this section of the society. Now, with this burden, over the period of time, the child will get used to carrying the burden and will accept it. And that is what is going to get forwarded or passed on to the upcoming generations, is it not? Now that this grandfather over here accepts the fact that only bangle making is the thing that I can do and I can do nothing else. So he would pass it on to the son. The son will further on go on passing it to the sons or daughters he's going to have. That is the cycle. Now imagine if you have to break this cycle and come out of the cycle, it would require a lot of courage. It would require you to dare and break the cycle. But is courage or daring part of growing up? Is it really the part of growing up? Are you, whenever you want to do something daring when you're small, you are most probably inhibited and not asked to abort the plan, whatever that you were doing. But here, courage is what is required to help them, right? To break the cycle. Moving forward, what is the word of hope that we get over here? Word of hope from this lesson is Mukesh doesn't want to be a bangle maker. He knows bangle making and he's good at it, but he doesn't want to be a bangle maker. He wants to be a motor mechanic and he wants to learn to drive cars. But then the author actually asks him, do you also dream of flying a plane one day? She actually tries to push these boys furthermore in order to dream a little bit more. Although they are not getting any exposure, he only sees cars moving around in his area. He doesn't see any planes, right? But she, On the other hand, she actually wants to do a little bit of what she can do. So she tries to push him and ask him, do you also, intend to fly a plane or something one day? To which he says, no, as of now, no. I only see cars every day around here. Let's think of planes some other day. But it's good to know that there is something called as, flying planes, and I can be a pilot too. That's good to know. Moving forward, we come here to recap the entire summary of these two stories. First one, Lost Spring. It is very evident that it was talking about the loss of childhood, right? Now, walking barefoot, we don't know if it is, how do we put it? Is it tradition? Or is it not, the lack of money or the lack of access to having chappals or slippers to be able to wear them? Is it tradition or poverty? Then, some need to pray and some need to pay. Although the child from Udupi, he actually prayed. But then by the time the child got, it was 30 years later that some other child got uniforms and slippers and shoes and everything. But what about the other rat pickers? Praying is enough. They have to pay and get it, right? And what if it would take them 30 years to get the shoes? It is a mind-numbing toil. Whenever, as we talked about, every person has a dream, but then it is killed stage-wise in every attempt that the dream is hoping to get realized. It is shattered. Eventually, it brings a sense of numbing in the individual and the dream dies. But marriage over here, as we saw in Savita's case, it's more like a societal obligation than a matter of choice. Later on here, we saw the friction between the two worlds, the monochrome world of the one that doesn't have anything or the basic, and the colorful world of the one that has everything, yet is also, picking over and eating over the ones that do not have any basic things as well. So there is stigma of caste, of course, is also burdening the poor. Now, in today's class, we saw many things. It was too much for us to digest, but I have tried to put it in the organized way possible, giving you all the backdrops and the characters, of course. Go back and read the story. Do not miss out on any details. Whoever you find, help people as much as you can, and write, of course, as much as you can. Whatever that you come across, grab in all the details, write it down, put it into a story or an article. Who knows, you might be able to impact people further on. Anis Jung has written something like this, and today we are reading it, trying to understand what is happening all over the world, in Firozabad, in Simapuri, right? And I am being able to transact it to you. You are watching this video. Who knows, someday when you write something, there'd be a kid sitting in the other corner of the world reading and understanding what happened in your time. It is very important that we pass on this piece of information. On that note, I'll meet you all in the next class. Until then, see you all. Take care. Thank you.